this idea of the way and knowing the way is quite interesting, and it's quite different from the way we do and lead and organize church and have done for many years. I say many years as in church history. We talk about faith and religion, and some of us don't like that word, but we talk about a faith and a belief and a relationship, and that's all good. Jesus is talking about the way. If you read the book of Acts, which talks about the early church was called the way. Paul, this person who initially didn't like the church, his intent was to persecute those who belonged to the way. This is a different kind of language, and it has meaning. The way talks about movement and motion and action, which is consistent with Jesus' pattern of disciples, where he calls people to follow him. Another word that talks about movement. You can't follow someone by staying still. You can't belong to something called the way and yet it be static and not moving. It's moving, it's going somewhere, it's doing something. Words like faith or I believe in this, you could say and sit down, but you can't belong to something called the way and be sat in a chair and never moving. And that's the pattern that Jesus is calling disciples to, and that's the expectation that the way his disciples will live out. So I used the phrase a few times yesterday, and I've had this rumbling around in my head for some time, and the last 6 months I found myself saying it more and more on a Sunday morning in our church setting on the South Shore of Boston. The church is meant to be a movement, not a machine. A machine is something that stays put and it has an action. It produces a product, and the danger is we try and produce a better product than the church down the road. That's not the goal. The goal is that we will be part of the way and be moving and going somewhere and doing something. And I'm going to look at that in a few minutes. What is it that we're to do? But ultimately it belongs and it begins with Jesus. Thomas speaks for many of us. And later, if you read on, one of the other disciples also says, I don't really know the way. How can we know the way? And Jesus says this so beautifully, I am the way. It's not a what do you need to do. It starts with who do you need to come to? And Jesus is saying, it's me. I am the way. Some of us have a tendency to go straight into action. It begins with knowing Jesus. I said we can't give directions to people if we don't know the way ourselves. And it begins by Jesus saying, it's me. I am the way. It's not about the next life, although that's a great thing to look forward to and a hope that we have. But that's not the goal. The goal is Jesus. I am the way. He's the way to the Father. So it begins, and this subject of directions, in knowing who Jesus is.